Hey folks, thanks for coming over to Capitalism for Good. This is a part of a larger project where I am on a mission to interview 100 business leaders about the positive impact that they have on their internal and external communities. It is through these interviews that we will dig into how we can use the ways in which we make and spend our dollars in order to benefit the greater good. Folks, today we have Anastasia Bezrukova, and she's the founder and CEO of Minori Beauty, which is short for Minimalist Origins. It is this simple, clean beauty brand with streamlined options that are meant to work for everyone who tries it and also be used until the very end. And it is a company that is carefully created with each decision being thoughtfully considered. We'll give a little plug here for the video version because she shows examples of Minori's products in the packaging. She talks about how she goes about making those decisions, about not only just the packaging, but really every decision by trying to get to the bottom of things like the manufacturing and distribution carbon footprint, the ingredients, the companies she chooses to partner with, and who those folks are as people, how they market, and really everything from top to bottom. She is another founder who is transparent about the limits and transparent about the behind the scenes of running her company. And that transparency and honesty that you will hear and see from her is so refreshing to me. She'll tell you all about her background that shaped her personality and her outlook and how that bleeds into her business. And anyway, I will just go ahead and let her tell you all about it. Enjoy.
All right. Hi, guys. My name is Anastasia Bezrukova, and I'm the founder of Minori, which stands for Minimalist Origins. And we are known as makeup for people who don't wear makeup. I started Minori exactly 4 years ago, and it took another 3 years to build it. I was head of personalization at Ipsy before starting Minori and a beauty buyer for several years prior to that. So that was my kind of entry into the beauty space. And what led me to starting this brand was realizing that despite being a beauty industry professional, when I walk into a Sephora or an Ulta, I am still completely overwhelmed and completely lost. And I thought to myself, oh my God, if somebody who's worked in the space for this long still feels like they know nothing and it's still an intimidating world, something is completely broken about the space and I'm going to fix it. So this is exactly what led me to starting Minori, wanting to create a brand that is much, much smaller, much simpler, only with the most essential shades of makeup that are something that you would want to put on at 8 in the morning on a Monday. And kind of catering to people who are not necessarily crazy beauty fanatics, but want to have that fresh, healthy skin, and want to feel like they are taking care of themselves, but without anything that requires watching thousands of hours of YouTube tutorials. So that is my little intro of how Minori started, and I'm super excited to dig in.
Can you talk about, so you said you started a year ago, but then there were 2 or 3 years before that when you were kind of getting everything started, developing. Can you talk about that time pre-launch and
Yeah,
like what all went into that whole process?
it was so we launched 4 years ago and it took 3 years to build it. And so I was essentially still working a full-time job at Ipsy. Um, for context, I am not somebody who comes from a ton of money or I'm not a trust fund baby. It's like building
Yeah.
one of these brands is extremely expensive and takes a hot second. And if you don't come already with a really big pool of resources, it takes a while. And my husband and I were completely okay with that. We thought, you know what, let's baby steps, let's just get the ball rolling. So in the first year, we hired a designer. We're both
Yeah.
originally from Montreal, so we were like, okay, like we were living in New York City. Like at the time, we were in New York City. Now we're in San Francisco. Let's hire a designer from Montreal to make it a little bit more affordable. Eventually, we found packaging companies. We found a lab based in Texas to make our products. But it took like it took almost a year of seeing products and seeing submissions from different labs across the US to find the one that we fell in love with. So it was a lot of research, a lot of introducing ourselves, not getting our emails answered because we were nobody at the time. It helped that I was working for Ipsy because it was a really big name in the industry. So some people did take me more seriously than others, but yeah, it was definitely a really long process of just kind of getting those pieces aligned. And then eventually, when we had our formulas done, we decided to do a big model photo shoot, even though like our product wasn't even close to being ready.
Yeah.
But we wanted to document that entire journey. So if for people who are curious out there, there is somewhere on the web. It's a little hard to find, but an entire series of newsletters that spoke about every single step that I took to
Yeah.
launch this company. And eventually we moved to California and COVID started. And I decided to quit my job. The brand was already getting a little bit bigger on social media. I was sharing with the world of micro influencers at the time the fact that I was building this. And we had maybe like 3,000 followers, and I'm like, okay, you know what? I think I'm gonna get sued soon if I don't tell my boss that I'm building this. So, we let Ipsy know, and then decided that, okay, you know what? I think we're building something really substantial, so it really makes sense to kind of do this completely on our own in a clean
Yeah.
way. And I quit and we moved back home with our parents in Montreal to not pay rent for an entire year during the pandemic. And that was Minori Building Boot Camp. I did nothing else except finish this project, get all the last final pieces together, and we launched in July 2021.
Okay.
And yeah, since then it's been growing bit by bit. But those days were some of the funnest. They were some of the most nerve-wracking. But it was so much fun. Building is a lot more fun than year one of being in business, I can tell you that.
Okay, tell me about, I mean, I have so many questions for you specifically about that, but tell me about the difference in what it's like built, because I imagine that too. I'm a planner through and through in my heart of heart. I am an insane person. I actually just spent the last like 2 or 3 days combining all of like my personal goals, my work goals, my everything, built out a budget through 2020 or 2055 because I'm an insane person, but like I love that so much. It is the creative part of my brain, even though
Mhm.
it's like numbers and like timelines and stuff like that. But I I I get so keyed up about like the plans of things, but then I get really scared and nervous when it comes to like the implementation piece of it. And then I don't know what it is if I'm self-conscious about like what's gonna happen. Is it gonna take off? Is it gonna do what I like? What was that part and the difference between the planning versus the launch part for
So
you?
I mean, it's massive because I think one of the things I realized about building is you spend a lot more time on things that you're personally really passionate about and like you want to work on, and they're not necessarily the things that will move the needle when
Yeah.
when reality kicks in. And
Hmm.
I'm really lucky that I spent so much time working on packaging and design and formulas and product that that part of the brand was so buttoned up. Like we looked like a serious brand that could, compete on the shelves of retailers versus companies that were funded with millions of dollars. But,
Yeah.
behind that, it was one person. And
Yeah.
but on the other hand, I spent zero time thinking about, okay, how are we going to market this? Like I
Hmm.
knew that we were launching with a retail partner. We were launching with the Detox Market, which is an amazing partner based in North America. They were like a clean beauty expert. They vetted all our ingredients, so I felt really confident about that. But like in reality, being in 7 stores and selling to I think at the time we maybe had like 5 or 7 thousand followers on Instagram, like that is not a business. Like that is not going to
Right.
anywhere close to pay for anything. And that was the really big issue is like I realized that I was already working on like these big sustainability briefs, and I had this intern doing like all the sustainability research, and we were writing all these blog posts, and we were trying to figure out like affiliate programs and all the we were
Yeah.
trying to figure out influencer marketing. So we spent so much time like treading water in all these different directions, but
Yeah.
without like figuring out an exact growth engine. And honestly, I think that for a lot of small businesses, they will figure it out only when reality really hits the fan, where you're like, okay, if we don't figure out how we're actually making money in the next 6 months, our company will run out of money and we will have to close the doors. And that entire first year was me coming to that reality. Like I was still
Yeah.
working on product development briefs of new products that we could not afford to even make
Right.
yet. Like I
Yeah.
still have right now, like I was using it this morning, this beautiful makeup brush that we were going to have to spend $30,000 to pay for,
Hmm.
which if you think about it, a makeup brush, and especially in a brand that really promotes like using just fingers and like not having to buy tools, like
Yeah.
that wasn't priority number one on our list. But
Right.
I
Yeah.
spent like a good, I don't know, maybe 100 hours doing this back and forth with this factory, like getting these samples of this gorgeous product out to life, but there wasn't money to make this. So
Mhm.
this is, at some point my husband was like, Anna, he's like, we're this company won't exist unless we really figure out the basics. Like, stop
Yeah.
working on new products, just really focus on what needs to happen. And I think pre-launch, it's exactly that. You're tackling all of these things that you think you really need to have straight and like done,
Yeah.
but you're not necessarily prioritizing the right things. And I think this is a pretty common problem. I don't think this is just me. I think it's, and every
Yeah.
time I speak to other founders, I'm like, don't do what I did. Like, don't start working on things that are a year away. Like start working on day one. Like who's gonna
Yeah.
buy your products day one, day two, day 10?
Yeah. How are you finding all of your partners along the way, your manufacturing partners and the design and the like that is such a key decision along the way is like who are you going to work with long term? How are you going about choosing the folks that you were partnering with?
So, I mean, I had a little bit of understanding about the space because I worked in it. So,
Yeah.
when I was a beauty buyer, even back in my Canadian corporate days, I went to this really big trade show called Cosmoprof in Italy. And you're walking in this place and it's like 10 IKEA buildings, like it's massive. And every contract manufacturer, every factory in this space has a booth there. And for some reason, like NDAs are completely ignored at these shows. It's like, and if you just call up somebody, you're like, oh, like, do you work with this company? They'll be like, we can't tell you. But at the trade shows, they're like showing like, oh, we make this for Fenty and we make this for Tom Ford and we make this for Ilia and for Merit. Like, everyone
Yeah.
shows their work, so you can. So I went to the one in Italy a very long time ago, and then I went to Cosmoprof in Las Vegas, a little bit closer, like about 2 years before a launch. And I was walking around just taking everyone's business cards
Yeah.
and kind of looking at who makes packaging for whom. And I ended up connecting with one of the biggest companies in the US, who is a project manager. So they have all the contacts to all the factories in Asia for the packaging, and they actually happen to co-own the lab that we ended up working with.
Okay.
So they kind of help put that ribbon together. But I had a couple of conversations and kind of got pretty far with a handful of these types of companies before picking the one that we ended up going with. And it's such a difficult decision because honestly, that company that you pick to work with, you will be in a long-term marriage with them, and it has to work, and there will be hiccups. You will need
Yeah.
couples therapy, all of the above. It's like we've been working with them for 6+ years now, and
Yeah.
it's tough. Like we're their smallest customer, and we're expecting the best customer service from them, and
Yeah.
it really, I think this year is when that relationship is paying off for them because we were really, really tiny and now we're getting bigger. So it's really, really tough finding that perfect match. And so you can't keep searching. Sometimes you're like, okay, we're getting married. We're gonna start building.
Yeah. Were you I mean, I think I
throughout like every job that I've ever had, I've always sat kind of between nonprofit and for-profit world. And so much of my nonprofit background, especially like the fundraising piece of that and grant writing and grant management, I always think, I always talk about like, well, there's a piece of it that is like customer service
Mhm.
mixed with like partnership relations, like business
Yeah.
relations, business development kind of piece. I I wonder if that is a part of that like relationship management, couples therapy piece with your partners and like, okay, we're gonna be your smallest, we're your smallest client here, but like hang with us. It might be a slow burn, it might take some time, but like I promise this will pay off. Like, did that take some like convincing on your end? Or like did you already kind of know them? So you had a little bit of a relationship with them? How did like what was that part like?
So I think I got really lucky that the lab that they co-owned, who ended up being our main partner, like the chemists, the
Yeah.
chemist family, and it's a family business.
Oh,
The
cool.
first time that I went to visit them, they were still in their original facility. Now their lab looks like NASA. Like literally, you pull up there and it's like the biggest building. It's like it feels like there are spaceships flying out of there. Like it's that good. But when I first met them, they were in this tiny little place, and they took me out for dinner 2 nights in a row and told me their life stories. And I fell in love with them as people. And even though our relationship with the project manager who like orchestrated everything was a little bit more tense, like I wanted to kind of keep growing with this team of chemists because I knew how amazing they were as people. So that relationship, like those 2 days that they spent with me in Houston, taking me out, telling, like getting to know me getting to know them, like that kind of kept our relationship growing stronger for the next 6 years.
Yeah.
And on the other side, it's a little bit more corporate. There's a lot more layers. Like I do my best now to be like as direct as possible, as like transparent of like what I want,
Yeah.
and trying to not feel small anymore. Being like, okay, like I'm showing them my numbers. I'm like, okay, we're in 500 stores now. Like we grew 4x versus last year. Like I say these things out loud. I'm like, I need to show to them that we are growing, and here are my asks, and ask for better payment terms, and ask for I really started pushing the bigger guys who are kind of who are creating a little bit more issues for me, and telling them exactly what I want. And you know what? Like
Yeah.
over time, when you're doing it firmly but politely, this is my
Yeah.
very Canadian nature. Things do work out.
I feel like the Canadian nature is similar to I grew up in the Midwest in the US, and I think it's like there's a little bit of overlap in
Yeah,
the
I'm
neighborliness part of it.
exactly. I definitely have the Canadian niceness, but I was born in the Soviet Union. I'm half Russian, half Greek. So, I still don't have the best sense of humor and will tell you exactly what I want. So, but in a very polite way.
Yeah. What has that been like if you, so you're Canadian, you also lived in the Soviet Union, you were in New York, now you're in California, you're all over the place. Like, how has that like melting pot of cultures influenced like everything that you're doing?
I mean, I think that my immigrant background has made me a lot more comfortable with risk
Mm.
because, I've seen my mom build a business when it was illegal to have businesses in the Soviet Union. My mom was a very, very famous and talented tailor who dressed everyone in our city, like, custom dresses. And I grew up in her atelier. I grew up seeing her build this. And then I saw her give it all up to move to Montreal and become a cleaning lady for many more years before she could get back to being a tailor. And I saw my dad quit being a colonel and move to Canada and become a truck driver and start all over. And to me, like those risks and these moves that they took was just so admirable, and I was so impressed by by just being able to take this leap and be really uncomfortable at the age of like 50, 40, like completely starting over in a country with where you don't speak the language. And
Yeah.
my sister took a little bit more of the traditional route, and she became a lawyer and had this really, really steady 9 to 5. She still works for the same company for like since
Yeah.
2001. But I think because I was the younger child, I was able to kind of try out all these different things, but I worked really freaking hard. And I think so I had that ethic of hard work. And I also grew up with no money. So I think like I wasn't chasing a certain like lifestyle. I'm like, well, if I can, I survived with no money. So if I can figure out how to try all these different things, and maybe even if I don't make that crazy big salary from the get-go, but I find something that I truly love, maybe that will work out better. And I think that intuition led me to really thinking like an entrepreneur and being a little bit more of a risk taker. And I think that's been hugely impactful for me. And then moving from all these different places is just like that ability of starting over and like meeting new people and reestablishing new friend groups, and just like constantly being comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think that is one of like the best things that you can train your brain to do, when you're starting a company, because every single day is uncomfortable. It's like you have these highs and these moments where you're celebrating, but generally your status is being kind of, a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit or a lot.
Yeah. I was just talking to my good friend Melanie yesterday, who I like, I've got this like cool network of women around me that are all like, challenging themselves in different kinds of ways and love to like get into the minutia of life and all of this kind of stuff. And anyway, yesterday we were specifically talking about moves because I am in the middle of a big move right now. And she was like, it's forced evolution that, like, if when you're younger and you switch schools or you go away to college and then you enter the work, like, you have all of these stages in your life that force you to evolve and challenge yourself, should you follow in that pathway. And kind of sometimes as we get older, there are less opportunities of those forced evolutions
Hmm.
unless you choose to make those kinds of decisions, like become an entrepreneur, start your own
Hmm.
brand, move countries and move coasts. And
Hmm.
I I I think that it's such a I was thinking about it when you were talking, that it's such an impactful thing of like, the more that you push yourself out of your comfort zone, the more that you become comfortable with the uncomfortable, the more that you're like, you gain this confidence and knowledge of, I think I'd say it to myself often of like, you've been here before, you can be here again, you can do this
Hmm.
again. Like, in maybe it's not the same exact challenge or the same exact issue or problem that you're facing, but it's like, you know what? We've been through worse. It'll be fine.
Exactly. And that's exactly what where we have to train our nervous system, being like, okay, like this, if you're doing something new for the first time and you're giving some speech in front of an audience, and you're like, I know this feels terrible, but we've done this before and we survived and we're gonna survive through this. And it's exactly that.
Yeah. Are you comfortable talking about like what are those things for you as a human that you're like, I kind of dread doing it, or it's really scary, or like these are the challenges that really get me, but like you get over it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind public speaking. Like I love all that stuff. I think for me, it's taking doing things that I've tried before that didn't work and like being
Yeah.
open-minded about trying them again. And I
Yeah.
think with Minori specifically, because in that first year we tried so many things, like I call it that, like, that allegory of like analogy of like throwing pasta at the wall and like seeing what
Yeah.
sticks. I feel like we did a 360 of throwing that pasta. We did like all the influencer marketing, like hiring a PR agency. And a lot of these things just really did not amount to a positive return on investment. And we were really tiny back then, and I think it would lead to a different result today. But I definitely got burnt on a lot of these things. So whenever I'm like speaking to somebody who's like, oh, we should do a partnership together, and like, I could post about you on social media, and it's only $3,000, and I'm like, girl, like, do you really think you're going to be able to sell $3,000 worth of lip gloss from, 2, 3 Instagram stories and a post? I'm
Yeah.
I'm not sure. So
Yeah.
I'm really uncomfortable with just like testing these small marketing things. And I've
Yeah.
like learned to really try to control growth through very tangible aspects. It's like I will go do
Mm.
5 more trade shows where I build a booth and I'm like in a giant convention center where there are 10,000 retail buyers walking through. We just did one this week in Las Vegas called Magic. It's all these fashion every boutique in this country and in Canada and South America flies in and they're buying kind of the next season's collection. And there's maybe 20 personal care / beauty brands that exhibit there. We're one of them. And every time I'll open 20, 30 new partner accounts. So we're going to be launching in like 20 to 30 new stores after every one of these trade shows. And like to me, like that is tangible. I roll up my sleeves, I pay $4,000 to do that trade show, I fly myself there, I build my booth, and I speak to humans 3, 4 days in a row, and it always breaks even. It's always a positive experience. So like
Yeah.
I will work myself to the bone doing these things before I take like another bet on an influencer or some like new agency that is promising us some kind of, magical result. And, it's a double-edged sword. On one end, we're doing really well as a company because I'm willing to put in all this work. And on the other side, like I look at
Yeah.
these brands who are doing like amazing, like millions of dollars on TikTok shop. And I'm like, well, I completely flew by that world because I was not willing to try these other things. So,
Yeah.
it's not necessarily better than the other, but I'm definitely super uncomfortable with like kind of wasting money because we're such a sustainable, like we're really a brand that like every decision needs to make sense and yield a result. So we're a little bit more we're sustainable in many ways. Like capital management is definitely one of them.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I was just talking to another guy that I'm interviewing that has a sustainable investment firm. So
Mhm.
like publicly traded companies is there, but everything is sustainable, socially responsible. And he was also talking about like it's when we talk sustainability, it's not just tangible things, it's also
Mhm.
return on investment, and it's
Yes.
all of these pieces together. It's also like the stability of a company so that your money will continue to make an impact. It's all of these kinds of
A hundred
things
percent.
together. Can you talk a little bit about, well, first of all, you're clearly doing something right. If you're growing 4x growth within the last year, you're now in 500 stores. Like that is so amazing, especially for a company that is committed to its values and these priorities, these things that are super important and are at the core to what your brand does. Like, can you talk a little bit about like what are those, I mean, this is kind of like a cheesy way to ask this, but like those core values, those things that you're like, we're not negotiating on this. It
Mhm.
is, we're putting sustainability first. We're putting the ingredients, like whatever those
Mhm.
pieces are that make up Minori.
So I would say the really big one, and that's going back to our why, like why this company started, is having fewer, better products. Most brands in the beauty industry grow by constant newness. So it's literally a schedule of okay, Q4 of next year we're launching this, and Q1 of the following year we're launching that, and it's that cycle of constant launches and being able to create buzz at every launch is what sustains most brands that are on shelves of big retailers. So part of our decision, first of all, is saying like, well, we don't want to have 12 different shades of blush because when you have 12 shades of blush, I mean, you really have to figure out which one you're going to buy out of those 12, and that it's
Right.
an uncomfortable decision for our customers. So we're
Yeah.
keeping our shade range extremely universal. Like we have 3 shades of blush; they work on all skin tones, but we're comfortable with having 3 shades of blush for the next decade. I honestly don't think we're going to be changing them. We have one shade of highlighter. Most brands have like 6, 8 shades of highlighter. So we've focused on having fewer options, but that are extremely well made. So that is less packaging sitting in our warehouse. That is less waste, that is just really honing in on making a few products really, really good versus just, again, like, launching something because it's going to be a fun news story and then eventually discontinuing it and continuously launching more products. So fewer, better products, that is number one. I always tell my customers, I'm like, look, like as much as every side is trying to be more sustainable by buying packaging that is, potentially refillable or made with no plastic. I'm like, if you keep buying a ton of products that you don't finish and they're sitting in your drawers collecting dust and you don't want to throw them out because you paid money for them, and at the end of the day, like that relationship still doesn't work. Like what we can control is putting out products that are so freaking good that they will be in your makeup bag on like constant rotation. Like you will finish these products, you will use them to the last drop. Like that is my priority because I dread having our products sit somewhere in somebody's drawer and just like being their 15th blush. So we tell like a lot of like our, especially in our first like 2 years, we're like mindful consumption, please, like be mindful. You don't have to buy our product until you need it. And when you buy it, please use it. Like, please use it until the very end. And I can see that with my customers where they will buy a blush from us. And I know it takes them about a year and a half to finish it. And they come back a year later and I'm like, good girl. Like, thank you so much. Thank you for waiting a year and a half until you finished it and repurchased another one. That means that you've actually used through it. So mindful consumption on the customer side, fewer, better products on our side. That is a big priority. And then, in terms of every other small detail that we do, of trying to think through a component is like, what the product actually, the makeup gets filled into, and seeing, is there a way for us to reduce the plastic on it? As a small brand, you don't get to make these packaging changes very often because it's a very long lead time to develop something, and we don't necessarily have budgets to create custom molds for things. But for example, our blush, our big blush takes about a year and a half to finish. And it's packaged in glass, but it does have a plastic cap. And when we were making little samples for people to try it, we were depotting them into like little plastic containers. And I was like, oh my God, this is horrible. Like, we have all these like tiny little plastic jars. And eventually we made these beautiful little paper packaged cream blush minis. And we've been selling thousands of these. I think we've sold through like 30,000 of them since we launched them a year and a half ago. And they last you 3 to 4 months and they're completely biodegradable. It's paper. So like, this is a type of small change that we're trying to implement little by little. We're absolutely not perfect 360. We still have plastic in some of our packaging, like our lip glosses, like our mascara. But we're trying to think about every little effort that we can make without making it crazy expensive, and also being honest with ourselves. Like, I think refillable packaging was such a big buzz in the beauty industry, where brands were like, we're going to make like a little sachet where you can like keep the core component and then refill the actual bulk. But then you're creating like plastic here, plastic there, and unless they repurchase a product 4 to 5 times, that refillable impact does not break even. So all those like moisturizers that you're buying, like a refillable component, normally the main core piece has so much more plastic in it that it's not worth it until you've repurchased it 5 or 6 times. And most people, like, even myself, like, I don't buy the same moisturizer 5 or 6 times, or the same, cleanser 5 or 6 times. So I think for Minori, it's being like, okay, let's be brutally honest. Let's not make like a change just because everyone in the industry thinks that it's a better marketing story.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I could go so many places with that. Because there are also so many complexities when it comes to sustainably like manufactured or packaged good. And I'm sure that you know a million times more than I do about that. But like, I think about it sometimes with like refills and like, okay, so the shipping costs, even just the difference between like e-commerce and buying something at a store. Like, have you do you have experience like going down the road one way and being like, oh, that's not what I thought it was going to be, or once we hit a certain threshold, now it changes the math a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, one very tangible example is our lip gloss packaging has sorry, this is a very
Yeah.
old lip serum of mine that's on my table. So this is packaged in plastic, both cap and vial. And I was speaking to my one of my suppliers, and I'm like, you know, if we made it out of glass. If we made this whole piece out of glass, would it be a lot more sustainable? He's like, well, yes, technically it would be recyclable, but the energy that it costs to produce glass is so much higher. And because you would have to create an entire new mold to make this, and
Mhm.
it would it's still in a lot of facilities because it's not like a full inch. It would get dropped through the sifters at recycling facilities, and most recycling facilities would not be able to truly recycle it because it's too small in
Yeah.
diameter. And just the energy of producing glass is so much higher, and the cost of transporting glass is so much higher. So like your entire carbon footprint of switching this to glass is not necessarily worth it. And so, but it would tell such a nicer marketing story,
Right.
right? Like it would be, I know that like we like, you know, a retail partner like Credo, for example, told us like we can't launch there unless like we have all glass or like over 55% PCR, like maybe would be able to make that shift. So there's all these considerations. And right now I'm like, you know what, like this is like, I know that this is not perfect, but glass doesn't seem like a better solution. And making all of these changes at the end of the day because it would market better doesn't seem like the right move for us either. So, you know, like this is a very concrete
Yeah.
example of it not being worth it, and just being honest with ourselves, and kind of having this conversation with our clients also, like if saying like that this is the calculation that we did.
Yeah. In kind of even just looking at your website and listening to you talk about when you were starting out and you did the newsletter that was like talking about this is how we're starting it and this is what
Mhm.
the process is on the back end. It seems like education or transparency is really important to you. Am I picking up on that right?
100%. So a funny thing is I am terrible at marketing for pure sales purposes. I
I
just
feel
like
that.
I can write an email about kind of the passion and the love that went into making a product so much easier than just like retelling you like three different ways to apply blush 4 years in a row after launching it. So I do lean a lot more into just making people understand the love and the work that goes into building a brand like this. Um, Bring them into onto this journey, because creating a physical product is a lot of fun. It's really difficult. There's a lot of challenges, and a lot of people want to know and come along with that. And we've done a pretty good job on the customer side of this, especially pre-launch. And right now I'm starting to on my B2B emails, because I almost don't send any DTC. Like our website, if you subscribe to our emails on our website, you will get the welcome flow, but I maybe send like three actual emails throughout the year. I'm terrible on that front. I really focus my energy on sending emails to our wholesale partners. And now I'm at this point where I'm like, again, like I'm just going to tell them, I'm going to share it with them, like the cost of building this business, like the mistakes that we made, like truly bring them on that journey. Because if I'm a store owner, I would so much rather read this type of content than just like another pretty marketing email that just like
Yeah.
says how great this product is, right? That's like we still do that, but I think being super raw and honest just makes it a lot more exciting. Like you feel like, okay, there is a real human behind this. Like there, it's not just some like marketing machine with like some crazy marketing dollars who are able to like pump out these really nice studio photography and beautifully written copy. Like I
Right.
find that especially in 2025, like I'm personally so sick of being marketed to on social media and on TikTok and on emails. Like I just delete most things. So I'll only open
Yeah.
emails from like writers that I truly care to read their real opinion.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like listening to podcasts like every waking hour of my day when I'm packing orders, and because it's like those real conversations is what I care to hear.
Yeah. I can't agree more. I will say the same thing about like things that are written by AI, which like I get it. Some people don't thrive in being a writer in that kind of way, and that is an actual tool for them. but if there's any kind of context of like pitching yourself as a storyteller, but then like clearly written by, I'm just like, nope, I can't even like take it seriously. Like, nope, tell me what's actually in your brain. I don't care if
Yeah.
it's well written. I don't care if you're using punctuation in the way your English teacher told you. Like, I want to know what you as a human have to say.
Mhm.
And I'm going to make another comparison for you about, so I heard about you in Minori through Kate Asseroff, the founder of Dip, who gave a shout out at the end of her interview to you and a number of other like really cool women in this space. And
Thank
it,
you.
it listening to listening to you talk, I'm like, oh, no wonder she like made the connection to you and the shout out to you, because she was also talking about like the way that she markets and talks to consumers and other vendors is like, as humans, she was like, I don't know a single person in my life that's not like funny, relatable, and
Mhm.
like all of these kinds of things. And it's not like like stuffed up and buttoned up too much. She was like, just they're humans. Like I want to talk to people like they're my friends because they are. Like just talk to people like they're humans. And it
I
reminds me a
know.
lot of the way you're talking about it.
Every once in a while, I'll send out an email, and my sister gets all my emails, and she's very attentive to detail. So she will find the one typo in that email, and I always like want to like hide under the table. I'm
Right.
like, oh no, I made like literally three typos in this email, and I'm like, you know what? We're humans. We're small business owners. We're doing this at like 2 in the morning. We're telling our story. We're putting ourselves out there, and maybe we're not running everything through ChatGPT to find every error. So
Yeah.
that's it's yeah, I do give myself some slack on these things, being like it's better to have an honest voice than being perfect.
Yeah. I also want to talk about again, I could ask you a million and two questions, but like going back to the way you're making decisions about the way you do business, the way that you've been able to grow in this like I'm gonna call it an against the grain way, even though it's probably more accurate to say that it's like more old school or something
Oh
than,
yeah.
you're not focusing, at least it seems like your time and your attention on these like flashy marketing things. You're not doing a ton of email marketing. You're not doing the TikTok shops that can be giant for some businesses and these kinds of things. Like, even when it comes to the choices about the products, like it your example of you don't have 15 different options for blushes, you have three. And
It's
simplifying those in a more universal way, it I wonder if like I don't know if you've come up against this at all, but like I think of like conversations that I've had with CFOs in the past that are like, okay, well, you need to keep your trajectory of your growth. You grew 25% last year. You need to keep that up. And you're like, okay, but that's not going to be sustained. Like, yes, in startup phase, this makes sense, but that's not sustainable over the course of 40 years or whatever that is. Like there, there is an element of like slow, stable
absolutely.
intentional growth while you can have these big 4x jumps in a year, like that kind of makes sense. But I wonder if you have thought of that or if you've come up with people being like, from a business perspective, that doesn't make sense. You need to be using TikTok, you need to be using these kinds of things, and you're like, yeah, well, the way I'm doing it is actually like, I don't know.
Absolutely. 100%. I mean, so one of the early things that we had to figure out is were we seriously going to try to fundraise like properly? We did a small friends and family round when we were first launching, and it was like literally getting your friends who had money like to give you 20K, 30K. So we raised, I think, like under 200, like 140K, I think we raised in the very early days. But in the beauty world, like every single person that you see on shelves at Sephora has raised at 3 million, at least like their first round, and then 5 to 7 million, like right after, to be able to survive in these big retailers.
Yeah.
And to me, that sounded so just like, I'm like, oh my God, like we're going to have to sell a huge chunk of our company. We're going to be on a leash, on like somebody else's leash. We're going to have to constantly try to aim to survive and not drown and like not get rejected by that retailer. So we kind of made from the beginning the decision that we're going to grow our company really focused on independent retailers and diversify to the max. So today that's why we're in 500 smaller stores that, so like if you're traveling in the US to like, I don't know, somewhere, anywhere cute, and you're like walking into a shop being like, oh, this is cute, like give me a second. Like we're in those types of stores. We're in hotels, we're in spas. And the world is my oyster when I look at it that way. Like there are so many beautiful experiences, salons, spas, resorts that we want to be in, and that it's takes more time to build those relationships one by one because it's not like one corporate buyer that like will build your fortune. But at the same time, we're like a lot harder to destroy because we went that route. So to me, it's like, okay, we'll take, it's going to take us several years before we get to being a 7-digit revenue brand. But by the time we get there, we're going to have such a strong foundation. Like this house will be built on a strong foundation. And when I think about what would make me happy, like every time I manifest and I'm like, okay, where do I want to be in 3 years? It's like the picture is very simple. It's like I want to have an office. I want to have 10 people whose salaries I pay, who like make a good living, that we're creating something really beautiful together, that we're being like just like doing these really cool things together. And that like I have maybe enough money to have a kid in San Francisco, which is a really big ask. We're not there yet, but I'm working towards that. And that I could like, make sure that like my team is making enough money to put their children through school and have a healthy, balanced life. Like that's really what I want. And
Yeah.
that's not the kind of story that I should be going around telling too often, because if ever we do fundraise, it's probably not what they want to hear. But I do seriously think that we can build like a 20-30 million dollar brand, doing things slowly the right way, and focusing on that sustainable growth versus just trying to kind of bite everything at the same time and then it not working out and getting like rejected by getting pushed out by a national retailer who's like, you didn't grow fast enough, you didn't do enough influencer marketing, you didn't pay enough money in PR, so that's not enough, and now you're out and you have nowhere to go. So that's kind of the route that we're taking. And again, like part of the reason that I'm like so allergic to influencer marketing, I'm maybe one day we'll hire a PR agency again, but like only if we have like such a healthy cushion of cash that we can afford to take that risk.
Uh, oh my gosh. Again, I'm like trying to keep myself from asking 14 other questions because I want to be respectful of your time. And I think I could probably talk to you for like 6 hours straight about picking your brain about all of these things. But in an effort to kind of wrap it up, going back to Kate Asseroff from Dip giving you a
Mhm.
shout out at the end when I asked the same question of everyone, I say, who is another business or leader that you see out there in the world that is doing things the right way that you think deserves a shout out? And it could be absolutely anyone, an old boss, a coworker, someone that you've met within this field, absolutely anyone that you think deserves a shout out.
So I want to give a shout out to Emily Saxton from the Flourish Market. She has an amazing, beautiful store in Raleigh and primarily focused on curating women-owned brands and sustainably focused brands, impact brands. And she is somebody who has such an amazing journey. Like she quit the world of banking and completely started over and built this amazing boutique and then became a coach, became a business coach. So she does masterminds and she does retreats and she does one-on-one coaching. That's definitely something that I'm kind of trying to see, like, can I eventually become one of her clients, because she really helps uplift women. And she's somebody who's built multiple businesses. I think she's 39 years old. So she's a few years older than me, but like to see somebody who has a store who managed to hire a team where she's like barely involved in the day to day, she's completely like built it in such a self-sufficient way that she has a team that manages that. And then she built a co-working space as well to bring all these women together, and now is doing all these retreats. Like, I'm like, oh, wow, that's amazing to see a woman who's able to just do so much and figure out how to do it in a way where she's not burning out. And teaches a lot of, I'm listening to her podcast right now. And she's teaching women about like how not to burn out, like how to protect your nervous system when you're doing this, how to work smarter, not harder. And that to me is it's everything that I'm trying to figure out at the moment. So huge shout out to her. You should absolutely have her on the podcast and chat with her.
Yeah, I just made a note also that I also am a big podcast consumer. And I was like, okay, this seems right up my alley. Need to add that into my queue. Okay. So shout out Emily Sexton. And
Thank you.
shout out to you. Thank you so much for doing this. I feel really cheesy saying this because I end up saying it to especially all of the women that I end up talking to, but I could talk to you for hours. I keep making all of these notes and I'm like, oh, there's so many things that like I didn't even get a chance to talk to you about. I can't thank you enough for doing this. It's been really
Oh,
cool.
Andrea, thank you so much for having me. This was a pleasure. And I love talking to other entrepreneurs. So if anybody's listening and has questions or wants to reach out, my email is anastasia@minoribeauty.com. I'm easy to find. You can also DM us on Instagram. It's me and my social media manager there. So always happy to chat with fellow founders, fellow risk takers. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you so much to every single person that's listened, every single person that has told someone else about it, that has shared an episode, that has sent a blog post to someone else to read, that shares on social media, that responds back to me, that engages and lets me know what they think and what they're hearing. Thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed through the Patreon. These subscriptions are what fund the project and keep it going. There's so many different tiers available, starting at $1 and $2 a month, and each tier gets you access to different kinds of things. So, for example, the $2 a month listener tier gets you access to interviews on Thursdays, so early access to the audio and video versions of interviews that are out every Thursday, typically in the evening time. Your $3 a month member tier adds on these weekly between the interview series on Mondays. That's what I gave a little sneak peek. There are some early examples of those between the interviews that were posted on the main feed, so that folks could kind of get a lay of the land and what's behind the motivation for this project. Those reflection episodes are still going every Monday, and the folks in that member tier are still have access to those things. The VIP tier has access to merch. I really do my best to give back to those that are joining. So check the show notes for the link to the Patreon. There's a lot there if you're interested in any of the behind the scenes of like how this project gets made from the back end. Like if you are someone who is interested in starting anything that looks similar to this, whatever your topic is, like I am really open, just like I'm asking these folks that I'm interviewing about like the mistakes that they made. I do my best to be very open about the mistakes and the lessons learned that I made, plus the resources that really helped me, the people that I'm looking up to. Like I yeah, why not share my experience there? So that's all available there. And just in general, I truly want to hear from you. So please, please message me on Instagram, message me on the Patreon, leave me a review that tells me what you think of it. Email me your thoughts and your suggestions, including the things that you don't like. I got tough skin, people. You can tell me the things that I need to improve upon. I am very open about early days, early stage, that I this entire project and almost everything that goes into it is brand spanking new to me. And I am learning, not just from these leaders that I'm interviewing, but I'm learning about the technical side of things. I'm learning about social media. I'm learning about advertising. Like, I'm learning about all of these types of things, and I am happy to share what I have learned as well. And so I want your feedback. I want the things that I'm not talking about that you want to hear about that is within this Capitalism for Good space. So reach out to me. I want to hear from you. I truly do. Send me your thoughts. and I'll do your research. Like I said, I really am listening and kind of creeping to see where people are coming from, where you're located, what your interests are. And so if there's an industry or an interest of yours that I haven't hit on that you are really interested, like some of your thoughts, if you have a question that is related to this Capitalism for Good project, I'll do the research here. So send them on over. I'm already doing it. I might as well do something that fits what you're asking for and what you're looking for. Finally, my last little plug and shout out here is if you are interested in working together to build better community, check out the business website for CFG. It's at capitalism-for-good.com. There's also a link down in the show notes. And whether you are interested in starting or expanding a community give back initiative with your company, if you want to plan a volunteer day and you don't want someone that's already your full-time employee taking away from their normal job to do it, if you're looking for a charity partner within a specific space or that aligns cleanly with your company values and your philosophy, or if you want to perhaps talk about some education around the value of community partnerships and what that can add to your business if done well and done efficiently and effectively, I would love to help. So I'd be happy to get on a phone call, see how CFG can help you with your community goals. Once again, would love to hear from you if you've got thoughts, needs, questions, interest anywhere within that space. I truly believe that we are stronger when we work together and that we can truly make a really impactful, positive future if we just put all our brains and our skills together and leverage those things to build better community. So, all right. That's enough. Let's go leave this place better than we found it.